If you're taking online classes and you are struggling, you're going to want to continue watching this video because I'm going to help you to create a plan that's going to help you to succeed, not just in online classes, but when we return back to in-person classes. This is the 4-step process that I take my students through to help them earn A's while having study-free weekends. Hey, I'm Clarissa, a mindset and study strategy coach for busy working adult students who want to earn A's by creating study routines they stick to so that they can have study-free weekends and enjoy their life alongside college. And in this video, not only am I going to show you how online classes and succeeding in them really isn't that different than succeeding in in-person classes. And I'm gonna walk you through the 4 things that I help my students focus on so that they can earn A's and B's without going through the stress, the overwhelm, and all of the other things that comes along with succeeding in college. If you really take the time to think about it, online classes and what it takes to succeed in them isn't that different than in-person classes. If you're watching this video in 2020 when I'm filming it, there's a whole pandemic going on that's affecting our ability to function as normal. But when it comes down to doing well in your classes, the things that were working for you in person are also going to work for you online. Granted that you have effective study strategies and time management routines in place that you can just carry over to being online. The biggest difference between online classes and in-person classes is that with online classes, it does require you to better manage yourself. And when I say that, what I mean is manage your thought process, manage your mindset, manage your emotions, and basically get yourself to do things even when you don't feel like it. Online classes require you to have a little bit more techniques, a little bit more strategy, a little bit more skill set around self-management than in-person classes, because in in-person classes you have external factors that are kind of motivating you and pushing you to get things done and show up in a specific way. But when you really think about it, when it comes down to the actual study skills, there really isn't that much of a difference. You're still getting the content that you would have received in class online. It's just showing up in either synchronous or asynchronous lectures, but the content is still the same, which means that you're still gonna have to learn it. You're still gonna have to test yourself on it. You're still gonna need to get help and support when you're not understanding it. And those are the 3 steps, the 3 main steps that I teach my students out of my 4-step process. So the first thing is, when you're taking online classes, you have to make a decision around how you're going to get the information from the original source into your mind in a way that makes sense for you. And this is what I call exposing yourself to the information. And more often than not, when you're taking in-person classes, a lot of students get their information initially from lecture. Well, with online classes, lecture still exists. It's just either being pre-recorded or being given to you via a virtual platform like Zoom. So just show up just like you would in an in-person class and take your notes. If you're struggling with how to take your notes, what to put inside of your notes, that's something that I cover in a video that I recorded on this channel all about reading and note-taking styles. And in my course, Study School, I give students a reading and note-taking guide that covers every single reading assignment that you're ever gonna get in college. And I walk them through my process for taking notes so that they have all the material that they need in order to succeed. But really, that's what you have to have in place. How are you gonna get the information from the original source, whether that's the lecture, whether that's the textbook, whether that's a PowerPoint, into your mind in a way that makes sense for you? The second step is, once you've acquired that information, once you've exposed yourself to it, you need to do a self check-in, and I call this testing to make sure. So you want to make sure that the time that you spent in lecture, that the time that you spent reading the textbook, that the time that you spent going through and devouring those PowerPoints was worth it. And by worth it, I mean that you pulled out of it, you got out of it what you needed to be able to answer papers around the topic area, to be able to answer test questions, to be able to solve problems with that information. So you have to have some level of understanding, and you want to make sure that that level of understanding is really solid prior to getting to the actual exam. And so you want to self-check, what do I know? What don't I know, and why don't I know it, which is then going to help you to figure out where you need to put some more time and attention and where you're going to need help and support, which leads me into step number 3, which is all about relearning or asking for help. So once you've done a initial check-in where you're asking yourself to explain whatever topic it was that was covered in lecture, or maybe you're doing practice homework problems, or you're studying with the group, once you're realizing, wow, I really understand this part of lecture over here, but I'm having a really hard time grasping this here or answering these types of questions. Once you have that insight, you can then figure out how you're going to need to get help and support. So do I need to go and rewatch the lecture? Do I need to go and attend office hours and get some support there? Do I need to attend some supplemental instruction? Am I going to need to work with or hire a tutor? Am I going to need some support around brainstorming and outlining this paper? The testing to make sure really sets you up to get what you need prior to the point in which you're going to be graded. It gives you time and space to fix what needs to be fixed in terms of your learning gaps, so that when it matters, when it counts, like on the exam, like when you're handing in a paper, like when you're doing a presentation, you are 100% fully prepared. Now, those 3 steps that I just gave you, I teach to my students, whether they are taking online classes by choice or due to this pandemic, or they're taking in-person classes. Those 3 steps don't change at all. What I have included, and I have always included, is step 4, which is all about managing your mindset. Now, I teach this to my students again, whether or not they're taking in-person or online classes, and this is really a key step to succeeding in either, but it's especially important when you're taking online classes, and the majority of the deadlines, a majority of the accountability is on you. And so what students struggle with in online classes isn't the fact that the format is different. It's not really that your classes are no longer in person. That's not what you're struggling with. What you're struggling with is getting yourself to do what you need to do without having this external pressure forcing you to do it, like attending lecture, etc. So self-management and managing your mindset is all about being aware of the things that you're telling yourself on a day-to-day basis, because the things that you're telling yourself on a day-to-day basis cause you to feel a certain way about your assignments. And depending on how you're feeling about your assignments, you're going to take certain actions or avoid other actions. And whatever you decide to do, whether you decide to study or you decide to procrastinate, is going to produce a result for you this semester. And if you're constantly procrastinating, the result that that's going to create is maybe a grade that isn't as high as you wanted it to be, or it might be that you're constantly stressed and overwhelmed because you're doing everything at the last minute. And if you are paying attention to your thoughts and you're noticing how they're making you feel about the assignment, what that allows you to do is make a choice in that moment to think differently about the assignment, to change your perspective. And that change in perspective, that change in your thought process will allow you to make decisions that are in line with the goals it is that you have for yourself. And this right here is the biggest issue with students who are struggling with online classes, is you're not being taught how to manage your mindset. You're not being taught how to self-manage. You're not being taught to be self-aware with what you're feeling, what you're experiencing. And because you're not self-aware, you don't know what things to put in place to help to support you when you're at home and maybe you're being bombarded by interruptions, or you're not able to focus as much as you were with in-person classes. And once you begin to understand what's going on for you on a mental level, on a physical level, on an emotional level, then you have the insight, the information to be able to build in routines, to be able to build in support systems at home that help you to succeed no matter where your classes are, whether they're online or they're in person. And so this is the structure, this is the process that I'm teaching to the students that I'm working with one-on-one and the students that I'm working with inside of my program called Study School. And if you are curious to learn what this looks like, this four-step process, what it looks like on a day-to-day basis, I actually filmed a video a few months ago. Actually, it was the day before I gave birth to my daughter, back on March 13th. I filmed a video on how to study for online classes, and in it I go in a lot of detail on what the three-step process, the exposing yourself, the testing yourself, and the asking for help process looks like for online classes. So I recommend that you go and watch that video. I'm gonna make sure to put a link to it down in the description box. And honestly, succeeding in online classes is really simple, especially if you already had a great study routine in place for in-person classes, because not much is different. You're still gonna have to attend lecture in one way or another. You're still gonna have to take notes. You're still gonna have to test yourself and practice. You're still gonna ask for help when you need it. Nothing in the studying sense is that different. What really changes is the way that you're showing up every single day. And what that's gonna take is a lot of insight, a lot of self-awareness, and that often doesn't get taught to students in general. And if you're one of those students who already knows this, but you're having a hard time following through and sticking with it because you're procrastinating, I recommend that you download my ultimate anti-procrastination guide for the college woman who is brilliant and tired of failing due to poor habits. So go ahead and download that guide. It's completely free. It will teach you why it is that you're specifically procrastinating, and it'll help you to build in the motivation and the inspiration that you need to continue moving forward even when you don't feel like studying. And if no one has told you recently, remember that you are smart enough, capable enough, and worthy enough of college and life success. All you need are the skills and the support to do it, and that's what this channel is for.